Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Jake's RC Stuff. Today it's going to be sort of a radio-y podcasty type episode. Hopefully I can find the picture of the plane in question in the background, but I am going to be talking about what happened with my QuiQue Somenzini Premier Aircraft Yak 54. So I've currently flown it 3 times, and it's been quite interesting because 2 of those flights sort of ended in a failure, sort of not. Basically, so the first flight, I'm flying it round, and it just seemed a bit strange. It didn't feel very. Something just felt wrong with it. And then all of a sudden, I'm flying it along, and it's if you accidentally knocked full high rate down elevator. But I was in low rates, just sort of flying it around, trimming it out, not doing anything acrobatic or anything like that. Because, as I said, it just didn't feel right for some reason. And it's a bit, first flight of a bigger model that was about £1,500 to put together. You're going to be a bit steady with it until the second flight. And then, so yeah, it sort of has this sudden, you just give it like a quick, if you can hear the wind, sort of very, very quick, sort of full down elevator. And luckily, I was at enough height to sort of pull it round. I was like, whoa, what was that? Kind of flew it around again. And so I'm flying in the left-hand circuit. And as I'm on sort of the final turn, as I'm about to go past myself, so you turn, so I was going left, then flying it sort of downwind, and then turning left. And as I'm going into the wind, as I'm rolling right to go back level, it surely snapped left and went upside down. So I rolled it back level and just tiptoed it in. Really, really slow, which is impressive of it. And just landed it. And it turns out, as we were discussing it, it turns out that the McGregor servos, there have been discussions about how well they work with certain receiver manufacturers, one of them being Futaba, which is what I use for my regular planes. My non-FPV planes. And it turns out that, but it's something to do with the voltage of the signal can sometimes be too low for Futaba. And there is a Flying Giants forum thread on this, where people have been having these issue on jets. And some Savox servos, which I've never had issues with Savox servos, other than some set which I sent back because it had ridiculous play in the middle, but nothing serious like this. So what I decided to do is I found 2 ridiculously expensive Futaba servos in a drawer. What my dad did and let me use them. So I think they got put on the ailerons, and then I bought for £66 each some Savox servos for the tail and the rudder. Which I couldn't really afford, to be brutally honest. They're still on PayPal credit. The reason why we use those is mostly because it's brands that we trust, Futaba and Savox, or most of our other planes. They do 7.2 volts, which is what that plane runs on, just a standard 2S battery for all the servos. Also, it was a lot easier to put them in, because I'm fairly sure those McGregors are Savoxes anyway, will come from the same factory. So I put in the Savoxes and the Futabas. Another thing is all the arms are the same, so you literally unscrew one arm, put the other arm on. So nothing changed in this plane other than the servos for a mix of Futaba and Savox. And the second flight was fantastic. Oh, brilliant! I had it on the deck, taut rolling, and doing all the job with it. Really good power from the X-Power motor. Fantastic. Flies for about 5 minutes. You don't really want to go much over that. 5 minutes lets you sort of finish off what you're doing and fly around and land it, instead of just as soon as the time starts beeping, you have to pull out and land. So that was all excellent. I believe that was on the heavy duty to energy batteries, or the graphenes. I can't remember. It may have been the graphenes actually on that first flight. Anyway, the second flight, I got sat on the ground, taut rolling in front of me. Obviously. The first flight happened, it went back to the workshop. 2 flights in the same day. And this one I've got it taut rolling around on the deck, just sort of flying it around some would say like a Pratt, but apparently very impressive until this happened. But and I don't know why I did it, but doing this saved the plane. Sat in front of me in a hover, so not tilt rolling, and I just flicked down and power to fly out of the hover. And the Casual Creation speed controller squealed and started bleeping at me. And the plane, so I'd put down so it was level, but as soon as I tried to give it more power, it squealed and shut off. So this plane basically is stood still in midair, luckily the right way up, not going to drop on its tail, but it just sank from sort of around head height. I'm 6'4" for people who are interested, or 6. Depending on who you ask, it's between 6'2" and 6'4". So sort of barely above my head, maybe 7 feet. It just went straight down onto the undercarriage. Undercarriage is bent out wide, prop hit the ground, snapped because it was still spinning, even if there's no power going to it. I swore very loudly because I thought it was going to break, and luckily I haven't actually flown it since putting it back together. But as far as I'm concerned, nothing broke. The undercarriage, big props to the undercarriage on this. It acted like a big spring. I mean, I think the plane literally hit the ground and bounced up in the air again. And it was bent like flat. Like if you'd put a new prop on it, it wouldn't have spun. It was very flat. We bent it back, no paint has chipped off of it. Hanging 9 planes, when that happens, the paint just chips off immediately and you can see aluminium underneath. This stuff was bent practically to a flat piece of metal again, like bananaed properly, and no paint snapped off it at all. So absolutely fantastic in terms of how that undercarriage is made. And it was making a bleep. If I still have the video, instead of me having to try and remember to edit this in, do I have the video? Okay. Bear with me. No, we're going back to before I bought it now. Have I got rid of this? Oh, come on. Oh, yeah. I was flying the heavy duties, actually, on this flight. But I'll play this for you. So that's why it was. Like as soon as it stopped, as it was still fully out of the sky, I was making that beeping noise. That's one of the good things about the fact it was directly in front of me. Looking into Casual Creation's instructions for the HV160, is it that I used in this? Turns out that beeping is overheating. So when I sort of re-looked into things, I cut no holes in the cowl. Because I wasn't putting an engine into it, there was no, it sort of, need to cut the cowl, no, it's not got an engine in it, so it sort of went out of my head. We've now, if you look at the front of that plane, there is, where the front of the cowl has, like, the sort of sections in it that spin round in black. We've cut out a couple of those and actually created a scoop to scoop air in onto the speed controller. Because it has holes in it already for where the exhaust would come out, or for air holes. So that's still there. But yeah, so I basically overheated it. The speed controller works fine. We tested it afterwards. It's fine. It's had a new prop put on it. The undercarriage has bent back into place. We found a couple of bits of plywood in the plane, but we don't know where they came from, and they were like 1 mil thick, so like they can't have been that structural. And I'm just waiting to fly it again. But the batteries were performing fine. And another thing I've actually bought is one of those laser, like £10 amps, laser temperature probes, so that when I fly it next time and do all that stuff, possibly higher in the air, not sat in front of me for the first couple of flights, I could check the temperature and make sure that it's not going to overheat. Because to be fair, I think the second flight was more or less directly after the first, so it probably hadn't cooled down properly. And you know, if I'd have flown it for 10 minutes in one flight, it would have probably done it on the first flight. It was one of those type of things. But yeah, so what happened to it? It flies well. when things aren't overheating or you've got dodgy servos. In terms of returning those servos to McGregor, I actually emailed Inwards. Sorry, not Inwards. Where did I get this from? Nexus, was it? I want to get the right place because they're cut slightly. Nexus. Was it Nexus? Yes, it was Nexus. So I emailed them saying that under the consumer rights and things like that, I should be entitled to an exchange or a refund on these, and they basically said no. Because as far as they're concerned, they haven't heard anything. Maybe I could have pushed it a little bit more and try to get more out of them, but they basically said, yeah, we're not accepting these as a return. So that's £33 times 5 down the drain. 150, 60 odd quid. Because that would have been nice to get that refund and just immediately paid off the 3 servers I had to buy, but unfortunately not. So like maybe I would trust those. I wouldn't really want to sell those servers to anybody, to be brutally honest. I don't think it's safe. It's not mentioned anywhere. They're not fully suitable for Taba. They could possibly work with my Easy UHF, or if I do get the R9 Free Sky stuff, maybe. But the trouble is they're big servos, so the only plane that I knew I would put them in would be like an X8. But yeah, so that's a bit of a fuck you at Nexus. I will think before spending my money with them again. It's not like some of the it's not like I will not deal with Horizon Hobby ever again. Like they've got to bring out something absolutely bloody fantastic before I'll order anything from Horizon Hobby again. Nexus, they're not quite that, but like I'm still not that impressed with them. Still a bit of a dick move. That they weren't even like, well, we'll send it in for testing. No, just like, yeah, no, we're not going to do anything. Like, fine, thanks for that. But anyway, this is the update on the QuiQue Yak. Hopefully, because I'm off for 4 days now, first of the 4 days, I'll actually get some plain stuff done, and you can have another build episode on the S1100. But for now, that'll be it. So if you're watching, see you on the next one. Bye-bye.